Welcome, everyone, to our February coffee chat, first coffee chat of 2025. I am Laura Knutson-Murray. I'm the GIS coordinator and community outreach assistant for IrisBG. With us today is Shanna Jones, our social media and community outreach assistant, and also our founder and CEO, Evan Rooston, is on the call with us today. Follow our coffee chat in the Knowledge Library. Our previous coffee chats can be found there under the category Articles and Presentations. Also available is our forum. You can subscribe to different topics and be notified when there is a new post. And these coffee chats are for you. If you have a topic that you'd like to challenge the community with or functionality that you'd like us to give a demonstration on, we're happy to take those requests. It can be anything, big or small. Coming up, if you are in the UK, we are providing a training, or if you're traveling to the UK, we're providing a training on our ArcGIS mobile solution, the IrisBG ArcGIS mobile. Scan this link and let us know that you're interested, and it has the agenda. Also, save the date. We have 2 coffee chats coming up in March at different times. So I know daylight savings time switches that month. So when you're registering, make sure you are picking the one that's in your time zone. We have one that is for during a regular coffee chat time. The presentation by John Chow from Piloli that was delayed, so it would be good to have him. And then for our Australia, New Zealand, and even Pacific and Mountain Time in the States, we have a coffee chat that's later in the day, and this will be given by John Bentley and Jennifer Peters from Melton Botanic Garden in Melbourne, Australia. Save the date for those 2. And here is just a look at everyone that registered for the coffee chat today. It's good to have people from all over, and we're glad to have you here. And our agenda. So we're so excited to have Cristina Salvador from San Fe Botanic Garden. She's the director of science and conservation there. And she will be talking about cultivating collaborative conservation. And before I turn the reins over, we have our 2 polls. One is our usual poll, rate your experience with IrisBG. Are you a novice, intermediate, advanced, or just trying out the trial? Appreciate you giving feedback on that. And then our second poll has multiple questions. And this one is helping Cristina get an idea of who's here today. What types of conservation collections do you manage? Looks like 92% of people on the call have ex situ collections. 58 have a seed bank. 50% have an herbarium. 42 do in situ, like habitat restoration. And then the second question, who do you partner with on conservation projects outside of your organization? Also a multiple choice question. Other gardens are 75%, state agencies 58, federal agencies 50, universities 42, and other conservation nonprofits 58. Thank you for participating in our polls. And I will turn the reins over to Cristina.
Thanks, Laura. Those poll results were really interesting to me. I'm surprised no pollen collections out there. So hi, everyone. So thank you so much for suggesting this coffee chat topic and inviting me. I think it's a really great opportunity to connect with other IrisBG users or even just people in our community. I have found this community to be very supportive. Everybody has been great at sharing their knowledge with me. So I'm hoping that today I can share a little bit about what we're doing and maybe also get some feedback from some of you who have been doing this longer than I have. I will go ahead and dive in. So I just wanted to begin this presentation by zooming out because I often talk about doing conservation in the Southwest. And since this is a global audience and there are people perhaps viewing this from all different corners, I wanted to ask what you consider to be the Southwest. I'm going to bombard you with a lot of maps in the beginning of this presentation, but I promise that we will get to plants. But it does help give you some context for the region. So I pulled a book out of the library that we have, and it was wildflowers of the United States, and I took a look at the map there just to see what they defined as Southwestern. And to the right is a lot of text. And you can read through that text if you'd like, but it really just speaks to the diversity that exists in the Southwest and why it's there because of the different land features and some of the sort of structure and ecosystems that converge in this particular area of the world. But I did find that little map a little boxy and limited. It didn't seem to cover quite the scope of everything. So I went online and I did find some maps with our Fish and Wildlife Service. And I thought, well, this is a little bit more expanded. It does seem to speak maybe to some other regions, but it didn't quite fit. And I even found a map that said the Southwest was this swath kind of going up through the middle of the United States. And it looked very odd to me. Sometimes these maps are created not with geography in mind, but perhaps other factors. And then I found a map on Reddit that was hotly debated, but seemed to give a more accurate sense of what the Southwest is, which is not restricted by state borders, really, but more of an area that sprawls in different ways. And it's really more helpful to look at different types of maps to think about the Southwest. So here we are. If you can see there, New Mexico, they're bounded, and in the center, I'll talk about the Zia symbol, but Santa Fe is the state capital, and we are the fifth largest state of the United States. Quite a bit of variation in elevation and precipitation, and a little bit about our climate, because a lot of people confuse us with the desert, and that is not what we are. We receive much more precipitation than a desert by definition, particularly in the summer months. And we do get quite cold here in the winter. So our region really is a variety of northern alpine peaks from the southern extension of the Rockies, but all the way to the Chihuahuan Desert. So you can see in the colors of the map on the bottom left, just all of that sort of different climate zones, and those will also affect our ecoregions. And then the state symbol is that Zia symbol. And I place that there because we were using that more often with permission from the Zia Pueblo. And it really originated from the Native Americans that have this as a sacred symbol. And it symbolizes the circle of life, the four winds, the four seasons, the four directions, and the four sacred obligations, which are to develop a strong body, a clear mind, a pure spirit, and devotion to the welfare of people. And the circle in the middle binds these four elements together. And I put also our state flower, the yucca, which I show you a picture of yucca a lot of, but some people say it's not really defined as species. So you can just say yucca. A little bit more about our climate, because this does greatly determine kind of what grows here and what you will find. And so in Santa Fe, we have a very kind of long winter. We often are caught with these late freezes. So everyone who gardens here always says, definitely don't plant before Mother's Day. And a lot of the plant sales are later. We're all watching everything bloom on the East Coast and all around the world, it feels like. And we're still just freezing there with blossoms that get hit by hard freezes. So it can be a very challenging place to garden. And you'll see there our hardiness zone is 6B. I will say that Santa Fe has just a huge amount of microclimates around it. So even though it may say it's 6B, we know that there's definitely other zones very short distances away from us. Just to add one more factor, we always talk about drought here in New Mexico. So I pulled this map that was generated just last week. Shows that we are in a moderate drought right now. And we definitely fluctuate between sometimes extreme drought, especially at this time of year. We haven't had much snowfall this year, so we're all kind of waiting for it. Okay, and so this is the last map for a while, I promise. I just wanted to show you all this sort of crazy different colors and things, and I think it's an important diversity that affects our work in plant conservation. You might not know what it is quite yet, but I will let you know here. This is all the different land status across the state. And particularly, I want to point out that the larger gray regions on the right-hand side are going to be the private lands across the plains, a lot of ranches, quite a bit to do with the long-held tradition of farming and grazing here in New Mexico. And then the sort of orange color tones to the left, and especially in the top left, would be our tribal lands. This just shows that the complexity and fabric of the state, in order to do plant conservation, means navigating a lot of different relationships and entities and agencies, different levels of permissions, permits, cultural respect, and just quite a bit going on. And so I like to just show this because it does make the work very rich, and just such an incredible group of people to work with across all these different lands. So, the mission of the Santa Fe Botanical Garden is here on this slide. And you can also see here in these two pictures just how far we've come in a short amount of time. So, I think I took both of these, and I definitely took a lot when we were building the garden in 2011 to 2013. But our mission has definitely evolved, and I think that's a good thing. And just recently is when we added science and conservation. And I bring this up only because if you were thinking about starting conservation, or maybe you're a young garden like us, or somebody working at a garden that doesn't have science or conservation in your mission, I strongly encourage you to either get it mentioned in a strategic plan, because it does make a big difference in terms of where the priorities are for the organization and also the budgeting. So, this was a concerted effort from all of our leadership, our board, our staff, and now we're making a deeper commitment to these two areas. And we also acknowledge all the different people who have been inhabiting this land long before us. So, the land that we're on has been continuously inhabited for well over 1,000 years, and we are definitely at a crossroads of different settlers and cultures that have come all the way from Spain, coming up through Mexico, travelers going across from east to west, and just so many different evolutions throughout history. And so the use of all these different plants, I'll speak to in a little bit about some of our garden details, but all of this history is incorporated at our site and into all of our mission. And we do sort of talk about diversity and show it through bilingual signage like this one at our entrance that helps to give people an idea of what they're about to see when they enter our site. And also, we strongly encourage people to learn more about our plants. So, we have our QR code to our Garden Explorer. And so, our group of people behind all of this are just a strong and mighty team of 6 full-time staff and a little bit larger part-time staff. We have 1 full-time staff and 1 part-time staff in horticulture, and then a few, interns, a lot of volunteers who contribute thousands of hours, and every single person on staff works with volunteers. And so just a little bit more information about who we are. We do have more people visit us, and that number shown there is admission, because we also do a lot of special events. We have weddings, we have rentals, and so it's a very active place year round. And of course, this is Santa Fe, so we have a strong history and community of arts. And these are just a few examples of some of the art you will find in the garden, some of the exhibitions that we put on, and some of them that we partner with. So our collaborations are definitely with other institutions and artists in our community, and it makes it just so much more fun to work there. And artists come and find themselves inspired while they're in the garden. I just like to show this really quickly, just walking through. Sometimes we find people coming to paint, and it is a place of inspiration. So we have grown quite a bit over the past years that we have, really been focusing on creating this garden. And this might be a lot of background, for you about our garden, but I promise I'm getting to the conservation part of this. Just wanted to show how much we've done in a short amount of time, and the scope of our area, which is only 8.5 managed acres, and none of it is owned by us. We lease it entirely, but we do not receive any operation budget from the federal government, state, county, city. We're entirely private donations and then revenue from our operations. And our garden is really trying to establish what it's like to be in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And so there's just elements of the design that speak to this one place of the world. You can't confuse it. You're not going to think you're in a formal like East Coast garden, and it's just a really beautiful place to experience Santa Fe and be inspired. So, our collections, just a little snapshot to talk about the size and scope of what we are currently growing. And what I'm trying to point out here is that conservation collections haven't been a priority in the past. And so we're slowly moving into that direction, but we are doing that without a greenhouse or any propagation right now. I will say we have made one small step forward in that area, but I'll dive a little deeper into our collections. So, our first phase that opened was the orchard gardens. We have a beautiful fruit orchard. We have a xeric garden with cactus and succulent collection. And we have a meadow garden that grows a lot of ornamental and native grasses combined with like beautiful ornamental trees. And so this garden has just so much beauty. And I thought it would be nice to just look at some of these beautiful scenes on sometimes what we say right now, dreary winter days. So the combination of colors, we're definitely not just all rock and brown and, small. I mean, these are just an explosion of the sky and the plants can be breathtaking. We have an ethno-botanical garden where we have been growing vegetables and plants that are put to use. And we have some demonstration sites. It's called Ojos y Manos, Eyes and Hands, because of that direct connection to hands-on observation and using the plants. Primarily native species are in this area of the garden. And then some of the collections that we're developing with a little more focus and curation would be our penstemon collection. We have now acquired about 45 taxa, and we're definitely looking to expand that more this coming year. And so there's a little breakdown of some of those plants in that collection. And then we also are working on a collection of the buckwheats, so Eriogonum. And both of these collections have a high amount of diversity, particularly in our region. And so I think it speaks to the biodiversity and the preservation of it, and also just raising awareness about sometimes these plants aren't as well known as some other ones to gardeners. And so we are definitely featuring them and highlighting them more in the next coming years, and possibly looking to get accredited as a plant collection through the American Public Gardens Association Plant Collections Network. I wanted to say our first accession of this year was actually an Eriogonum. Thank you to Daniel Murphy at Idaho Botanical Garden. We had been meeting for the past year or so, talking about how we could share more and exchange more plant material. And it was so generous to receive a exchange of seeds from him. And we're excited to try this Eriogonum or mini Eriogonum. If you have collections of it, please reach out to us. Just to expand what we have, to see what the different ranges are for these plants. Even though this one's not native to New Mexico, we are curious to see how it does. It does look like it's a really nice plant. And so finally, just to wrap up some about our collections, is pollinator habitat that we have been focusing on the past few years to demonstrate how to use water-wise plants and to also provide more resources throughout the seasons for all our pollinator friends. And so we partnered with the Xerces Society, and we helped be a demonstration site for habitat kits that had a select, I think it was between 15 and 20 different species that you received in a kit. And then we did workshops on planting guides and how to grow these plants. And hundreds of these kits went out all across Santa Fe and created what's called the Pollinator Trail. And it was a wonderful project. I think it is continuing this year. And it was great to work with a local nursery to grow out the plants, Xerces Society, and then to have all the people participate in this and then show us their results in their garden. We have quite a few plants that we are growing from the Plant Select program. So if you're not familiar with this, it's a wonderful plant trialing and breeding program that comes out of Colorado, really developing very hardy, vigorous plants. We have just been adding them to our collection slowly over time ever since the beginning. And we feel like we want to kind of show more and tell more about that and do more education about it. So if you don't know about it, program, definitely check into it. And wanted to point out this is definitely a attribute that we have so we can kind of keep track of what we're growing. Oh yeah, and this show, the rock star of this one is the Mojave sage that you can see at the bottom, which stuns people pretty much all growing season long. And everybody I think it sells out now at all the nurseries locally because a lot of people see it at our garden. So conservation, why now? There's a lot of reasons to do conservation. I could probably list, um, you know, 20 to 50 on this slide. But you might have seen recently in the news a lot coming up about how really the extinction crisis is threatening, and that botanic gardens, one way that we can do our part in this is to collaborate together and to develop more meta collections. And so these articles just recently came out from the study out of Cambridge, and I really think that more of this information in the news and more of us talking about how we can work together to create conservation collections and partner is very important right now and relevant, especially in New Mexico. We have a lot of diversity of plants. We're actually fourth in the state, and we are the third highest diversity of mammals in the United States and second in the diversity of birds. So we have a large amount of rare and endangered plant species and quite a few endemics. And so I just wanted to show an overview of the flora of New Mexico, and the strategy for how to sort of tackle the species conservation is guided through this rare plant conservation strategy that was developed by the state endangered plants program. And so this list is maintained annually, and we just had our meeting last week, and we update the list of rare and endangered plant species based on the ground. A room of botanists get together, different people who are working in conservation. And a lot of this information then goes into shared network databases. And so I'm sure you've heard of NatureServe, and our local natural heritage program is managing all that. And this map, I think this might be our last map, is just showing the important plant areas from outstanding biodiversity to moderate biodiversity. And so as you can see with the red star sort of in the top center, there we are in Santa Fe, and there's quite a bit up in our region. So there's definitely a lot of work to be done, and quite a bit of need. And so that also speaks to a reason why we are developing a conservation program. The threats are also important to list here. A lot of these are going to look familiar, but every summer it feels like it really hits us hard when the wildfire season starts, and it's very devastating even after these fires. What happens is during our monsoon season, then we are really hit with a lot of erosion and landslides, causing a lot of devastation to different habitats where these sometimes small and fragmented populations of plants exist. So there's not enough people to do all the surveys and the monitoring. So sometimes after these devastating events, we have to sort of assume that a lot of different populations could be negatively affected dramatically. So we work together with other partners across our region through the Center of Plant Conservation, which is a network that we joined just last year in August. We were officially made members. And in our state, we have 3 CPC institutions that are listed at the top there. And then we also collaborate quite a bit with Arizona and Colorado. And I put a few of them here. And this has been extremely helpful in terms of sharing resources, best practices, and also understanding which organizations are going to focus their work on which plants. And so we have been really appreciative to be a part of this network, and it's benefited our work and accelerated it quite quickly. And so one of the ways that we're starting out is by working with a new herbarium that we acquired last year. There was a small nonprofit called the New Mexico Natural History Institute. It was formed by a few people, including Roger Peterson, who's shown in this picture there looking at a book. And he is a botanist that is 93 years old. And I just took this picture a couple weeks ago when they came in to key out some species. And he has been just carefully safeguarding this collection and donated it to us. And we are working through it as quickly as we can, but also sort of according to best practices. So there's about 3,000 specimens. And I think just last week we went over 1,000 of them that have been transcribed, the labels into the SciNet database. And so there are ways that we could rapidly do this kind of work, I think, with other technologies that I'm very aware of. But whenever I talk to the volunteers who work on this collection, they resist because they said that they love that time to commune with the plants and to look at the specimen and to read over the notes and to manually enter that data. And so I find that really interesting and important to connect with our plants and not just be pushing them under a camera and just taking a digital scan. But yeah, so we partner with the University of New Mexico, their herbarium that's housed in the Museum of Southwestern Biology. They have been very generous in helping us establish some protocols and helping us with some grant writing and reviewing, which is important to this as we develop it in the future. So stay tuned for more about our herbarium. But what I do want to also point out is there have been so many of these collections that are important species, rare species that their locations haven't been known. So we're going to be geolocating all of these and digitizing them. And hopefully this will inform larger studies. We do have collaborations with the Albuquerque Biopark, who have been doing some plant salvaging, a little bit more propagation work than us. And so, for example, here we received some native New Mexico beard tongue plants from them. And we were excited to have some of our first wild sourced conservation collections in the garden last summer. And this is also very useful because Albuquerque Biopark is an IrisBG user. And so we have been talking about how we are setting up our databases in order for us to streamline our exchanges. And it is very nice to work directly with a partner in that way using the same database system. And then our other CPC partner, the Institute for Applied Ecology, does a lot of field work in seed collections. They actually have a Southwest Seed Partnership, and they are hosting actually the Native Seed Conference next month in Tucson. And so we are gaining a lot of valuable expertise and knowledge from them about seeds and about seed cleaning, as you can see I'm doing here on the right. And we are applying this techniques and restoration methods in our pinyon juniper woodland, which you can see there in the drone shot. It's about a little over 3 acres, and it is a degraded site and has a lot of potential. We've done some grass restoration. We're doing some erosion control and mitigation to sort of lessen that degradation and improve the soils. And so this project has been a great chance for us to sort of take our first steps into restoration and work with a variety of native plant species that we have not collected, but our partners have, and they're willing to share with us. So here's a shot of what we're calling the meadow restoration, native grasses, and we're hoping to incorporate more wildflowers and provide more resources also, as I said, for pollinators. Just to quickly say that we're part of a global conservation consortium that is organized through Botanical Gardens Conservation International and in the collection of oaks. So there are oak species in our region that are being collected through grant programs like this one that's jointly held with the APGA and the Forest Service. And other gardens are able, let's say, to have already done this field work and to have collected and grown out some of these trees, and they will be sharing these oak trees with us. And I think this year is when we will go to Denver and pick them up. And we have the area and the space to grow out some of these oaks and then be a repository site, perhaps in the future, do seed collection from our collections. And then also just, it's a great example of a meta collection where such a large genus as Quercus is impossible for one institution to conserve itself. So we are happy to be able to contribute to some of these larger global efforts. I do believe that we have to train and sort of build the capacity of the next generation and also network throughout like our region with our botanists. So these collecting forays have been organized by the herbarium at UNM, and they've been a great chance for the past 2 years for all of us to come together and to put our focus and our attention for a few days on some under-surveyed areas of New Mexico, which there are quite a lot. And so the result of these forays is not only just learning a lot about field techniques and, creating field vouchers, but they're also adding just so many important documentation and records to our state flora and definitely finding some new species. And you can see the herbarium specimen there that's going to UNM. So these have been a fun way to get together. And this one was taken in June of 2023. And then I think in October of 2024, we went to the Brokoff Mountains and the Guadalupe Mountains in the far south of New Mexico, which was an awesome experience. And to the north, I went up to Betty Ford Alpine Garden and met up with some staff from Denver Botanic Gardens and explored some alpine regions. And this was important for us to do because New Mexico has alpine regions, and a lot of them haven't been surveyed very regularly and do contain some rare and threatened species. And we actually have the farthest alpine zone of the United States on Sierra Blanca. And so this is just a chance for us to support the strategy for alpine plant conservation because, as we know, alpine plants are extremely affected by climate change and are definitely threatened. And so they really have nowhere to go. And so we want to document that biodiversity and support these conservation strategies. And also, like, as we are, let's say, collecting seed, we can maybe not have to keep it ourselves, but we are depositing that seed at the National Seed Storage up in Fort Collins. We have developed a new opportunity. So I think I'm posting it this week to some internship job boards. But this summer, there will be our first science and conservation intern. We are doing it jointly with our state endangered plants program, undergraduate or graduate, and really getting to work on some really cool species of New Mexico. As you see here on the bottom left, these are all federally listed threatened or endangered species in New Mexico. So there are plans to do surveys and to do monitoring of all these populations. So this is really just like direct on the ground experience, an incredible opportunity. And so we expect that over the years, we'll be able to look at a lot of different plants, but we're excited about this summer coming up here, and hopefully we'll have some good results to share next year. And always outreach and education is important. And so we developed a speaker series last year. We had, I think, 5 speakers, so one of them is not there, on science and conservation. And this year, the same thing. We'll be doing about 4 or 5 different speakers, and these are very popular. We get a lot of members, but also people from the community. And so this has just been a great chance for us to widen our scope of what we're hearing about, learning about, and also meet some really great people who are doing good work. But this year, we also are going to conduct a planning workshop just on our science and conservation program. And I'm really looking forward to this, to have a chance to sit down and focus with some of our maybe local, regional, and network stakeholders. And we are hoping that what comes of this is a roadmap for us to, guide us for the next few years and to really develop like what we'll be working on, what plants, and also look at the resources and the funding opportunities. So in conclusion, I think it's always important that we are tracking something. We are going to be looking at our XC2 collections, our herbarium, our potentially future seed banking program. Our garden is actually working on their organization-wide strategic plan, so this is being plugged directly into that. We will be doing a lot more of these public programs and continue to be an active partner with conservation organizations. And I just wanted to take a moment and say that on the 10th year of using IrisBG, I have really found it very helpful to be using a database like this that allows us to share our data very quickly and also just have a publicly accessible website about our plant collection that does, always need to be updated, but it's a really great resource and tool. And then opportunities like this, like the coffee chat, or like when I saw Mari and Oyvind last summer in Singapore, I was presenting at the Global Botanic Gardens Congress and just raising awareness about our region and our plants. And it was just wonderful opportunity. So I encourage you always to like get out there and to share more of your story or your garden story. So thank you to all of the different partners that we have been working with. It has been crucial and essential to us creating our program. And if anyone has any questions, I would be happy to take them now. I just wanted to end with a beautiful view of what I hope the weather looks like this week. I hope we get a little snow and our beautiful blue ice cypress, which is just a stunning conifer this time of year. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Cristina. This was really a wonderful presentation.